What is up, everybody? You're probably wondering, first of all, we're all in the wrong places, guys. Everybody is backwards and mixed up. There we go. Now you know who we are. Thank you so much for tuning in to the latest episode of the Dynasty Diehards here on the Razzball YouTube channel. I am joined by my always co-host, the always wonderful, down in New Orleans, Matt Chester. And we have a special guest co-host today, the one and only Andrew Hall of the Dynasty Junkies. Andrew, how are you doing today, my friend?
Oh no, since Andrew's off, if for anybody watching, I'll just lip sync for him.
No.
Guys, I'm doing great.
Guys, I'm doing great. No, I was going to say any day I can talk about fantasy football is a good day. A classic rookie move. Apologies.
No, it's all right. I was recording earlier with Joe Pepe, and I did the same thing. So fortunately, it was recorded, so I got to cut that whole part out.
Nice.
Yay. Can't do that when we're live, but this won't be in the
no,
audio.
baby, we're just slinging it.
No, dude, this whole part's gone in the audio version, though. No one on the audio version side is going to know, so it's fine. Everything's
Don't
fine.
mind anyway. I'm human, guys. I don't know if you know this.
We're all human. Speaking of humans,
they say never meet your heroes, and they were right.
That's true.
Yeah, that's fair.
Oh, all right, guys. Well, we are one day past NFL Cutdown Day. Of course, the day where teams have to cut to now in one day from 90 to 53 players on their roster. We had some surprising moves. So before we get into the meat of the show, the first thing I want to talk about here, some Cutdown Day surprises. The first one I want to talk about here is we've got Myles Gaskin. Myles Gaskin out in Miami. I think a lot of us assumed he'd been there for 3-4 seasons. The guy was probably going to hang out on the roster. We didn't see any reason for them to cut him. However, they let him go. But then today he signs with the Minnesota Vikings, who before signing him, all they had after cut day was Alexander Madison and Ty Chandler. That was it. So now we had that was it.
So they had Nwangwu.
I believe they released Nwangwu, or maybe practice squatted Nwangwu. However, Myles Gaskin is now a veteran presence in this backfield with Dalvin Cook gone, and a lot of people really questioning Alexander Madison. Do either of you think that this means anything for his fantasy value? I mean, is Gaskin someone who could have like a little bit of a comeback this season in Minnesota?
What do you think, Andrew?
Sure. I don't know. Like, I wasn't really that worried about, honestly, I wasn't really that worried about Gaskin in Miami. I didn't think he was going to last long there anyway. They got Mostert, they got A-Chain. Like, it's a crowded backfield. You could look at this as a trending arrow up in a sense because there's less competition for Gaskin, but overall, I still feel like you're changing teams this close to the start of the season. You're going to be a backup, a role player. I mean, again, I still think Ty Chandler looked really good the last time I saw him in the preseason. So it's just like, I don't know. I'm not really hyping this up too much, but I guess I have Gaskin on one team and maybe I won't drop him after all. That's about the best I can give you. Like just, I don't know, any RB on a 53, as Scott Connor says, and he's now on a 53 again. So I guess that makes it valuable.
Matt, how are you feeling about Myles Gaskin?
I'm feeling no kind of way about Myles Gaskin. Maybe we'll see him jump up to like 10% rostership on across the board, but none of them will be on my team probably.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. Myles Gaskin's kind of a jag. I mean, at most, he's going to get maybe 5 carries a game, even in Minnesota. He might get 1 or 2 looks in the passing attack, but more than likely, he won't even see that. This is a team that has more than enough in the backfield. Now, another surprising move just ahead of Cutdown Day. Trey Lance traded to the Dallas Cowboys. I know there's been a lot of discussion about this, so I don't want to beat this to death. Is there any hope that Trey Lance's career gets revived in Dallas? Andrew, you're making a face here. I feel like you've got something to say.
I am not that excited about Trey Lance in Dallas. I just don't think that's going to be a thing. I think he was added because the price was so cheap. I've made a lot of those dynasty trades in my life where I'm just like, hey, all you want is a 4th round pick. I don't know. Sure. Let's see what happens. The risk is low. The reward is high. But again, I mean, even if an injury, and again, I'm not wishing this, but even if an injury to Dak Prescott happened, I am not sold that Lance beats out Rush for that job because Cooper Rush has been there and has done it and can get the job done as we've seen. So I don't know. I'm not entirely out on Lance. I mean, I don't have any shares myself. I haven't traded him all away a while ago. But I mean, again, if he's on waivers,
what was your timeline of trading him away? Because that's sharp.
Last year, actually, I think it was September, like beginning of last season, I traded my last share away. I forget what I got for him, but that was my last one, and I was like, I'm out. And then about 2 months later, no, it was in January, I traded my only share of Brock Purdy because I was just like, nope, I'm hands off this entire offense. Like, I'm just not feeling it. The vibes aren't there. So again, I think Lance does have some skill and some talent. Obviously, he's playing at a very high level in a sport that I've never played in like that. So it's like, he's doing great. Don't get me wrong. But I just, if he's only worth a fourth, there's no reason for the Cowboys to really throw him in there unless something crazy or catastrophic happens. So I'm kind of out on him.
See, I'm with you guys on this. I have no interest in Trey Lance. I think that there's a chance maybe at the end of Dak Prescott's contract, Lance still will have one season left. Maybe they give him a chance as a starter, but I don't see it. He was such a raw talent coming in. No one's giving him actual meaningful snaps. That's not going to change anytime soon. So I have a hard time being in on Trey Lance. Another player I think everybody has a hard time being in on, Colt McCoy, was released by the Arizona Cardinals this week.
Fantastic segue, because wouldn't Trey Lance have been perfect for Arizona?
Exactly. Perfect. But instead they went out and got a year. Yeah. 100%. But instead they went out and they got Josh Dobbs from Cleveland. Now, it makes you wonder who's going to start. I mean, are we looking, is this Clayton Tune season in Arizona? Is there any interest in whoever it is in fantasy at all? Dynasty, like a bench stash guy. Likely a lot of deeper stash managers already have a guy like Clayton Tune, probably took him in the fourth round of a rookie draft. I know I've got Josh Dobbs rostered a couple of places that are deeper, but is there any hope for either one of these guys, if they do take over the starting job, that they will be fantasy relevant? Matt, what do you think?
No, but isn't Josh Dobbs a NASA scientist? Isn't that dude a rocket scientist?
Yes,
I think so.
Well, that's a fun narrative at least, but let's go with this. Would you trade either for Baker Mayfield straight up?
Baker. I'd rather
for
have
sure.
Baker.
For sure, without a doubt.
Yeah,
so what's the difference? Maybe 2/3 and Clayton Tune for Baker? Would you do that?
I'd probably want a second because I think they're a big enough difference. Thirds are just nothing to me. So really the lowest I go in differences is seconds. If it's a third, it's nothing. You know what I mean? Like, that's not how I play it. But gotcha. I mean, just to kind of piggyback on that, I think Tune is probably the better option because he's been there longer. And I feel like he's probably, more of a front office darling in a sense. They just traded for Dobbs, and it's probably more for depth. I don't think he's a starter. It's not like he's Jacoby Brissett or Teddy Bridgewater or one of these guys that can come in and actually start. And in all honesty, too, the Cardinals are in full out tank mode, as we've already seen, and the season hasn't even started. So I kind of, to back up what Matt said too, like, I don't really want either on my roster, but I mean, if you're going to force me to have a Cardinals offensive quarterback or even offensive player at this point on my roster, I guess I'd rather have Tune at price because he's so cheap. Whoever's got Murray is still going to want a lot for him. And I do think Murray's the better option to have in Dynasty overall because he's still got, I would think, a much longer career. But in terms of Superflex leagues, I mean, you're probably, if you're really considering starting Clayton Tune in your Superflex, you have better options, or at least you should. Right? I'd rather start my fifth running back than Clayton Tune. You know what I mean? Like, it's too risky for me. I'm out.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right, guys, that's enough on the cut down day surprises. I mean, there's one we can touch on real quick.
I got a few more that I want to talk about because they're guys close to my heart. I had a lot of love for Deneric Prince. Bailey Zappi got cut, which is really surprising because now New England does not have a backup quarterback at all.
Correct.
It's Mac Jones and nothing.
It's going to be Colt McCoy.
There are some weird things. Yeah, it could be Carson Wentz. It could be a bunch of
Carson Wentz.
Tom Brady. Anyone? Tom Brady?
Oh my God! I don't think
he would do that.
I could. I don't think he would do that, but I would like. I'm still holding on, buddy. I think Andrew. Last time I was on your show, we talked about, when do we cut Rob Gronkowski? And you were like, week 2.
Yeah. I mean, that's really where I'm at with all of this. Yeah, I mean, like if Brady were to come back, obviously it'd be crazy, but I'm not holding Brady. No.
I'll be honest with you. With the cut downs, I did actually cut down a Deneric Prince for a Tom Brady, just for funsies.
There you go.
We'll see.
You know what's funny too? I could see myself making one of those moves where I cut someone to add Brady, and then like a day later cut Brady to add someone else, just to say I had him.
For sure.
Hey, it was a fun ride, Brady. See you later.
We re-signed him for a day just so he could retire on our squad.
Exactly.
Cool.
Beautiful. All right, guys. Well, I want to get into our second set. Yeah. Sorry. All right. No, you did. No, and I'm with you. And I'm really, honestly, I say this. I'm surprised that Malik Cunningham got cut.
Yeah, they don't have anybody else back there.
No,
yeah, I think they're bringing one of them back on the practice squad, though. I think is what's going to happen. It's
going to be Zappy.
Zappy's there.
So everything I've read and heard said it's going to be Zappy
because he didn't get claimed off waivers.
Oh, yeah, no, he didn't get claimed, which is surprising. You'd think there would have been a team out there somewhere that would have claimed him off waivers, but I guess not. All right, guys, so let's get into our second segment here. We're going to talk about some post-cut-down trade targets. Now, everything that's happened, there's a lot more that has happened than we've talked about in the cut-down surprises here. So we were going to go over some players that are in different situations here first that we're in on, that are cheap, that you can go acquire, that might have some impact now that cut-down is done. Cut-down day is done. Good God, it's been a long day after cut-down day. Matt, I want to start with you because you didn't put yours on the show sheet like a jerk.
There was a show sheet? Wait, do we have a show sheet on this show?
Yes.
What?
I dropped it in our chat, pre-show chat, man.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Professionals. I love it.
All right, what do we got?
All right, so your post-cut-down trade targets. We want to give me one player just right now that you're going after that you want to trade for after post-cut-down day.
I'm gonna stall and give this to Andrew Hall. What do you think?
That's a smart move. Give yourself some time. So I put two of mine on there, but the one I want to talk about first is Trey Palmer, Tampa Bay receiver. I think that there is some obvious question marks at that Tampa Bay receiver room. You got Godwin and Evans, but on our lads, which again is not by any means accurate all the time, but they have Trey Palmer as the third starting receiver. And I think even in a Baker Mayfield offense, we were just talking about him, even in a Baker Mayfield offense, I think there's some value to have a young rookie kind of receiver who maybe could flash and could be something. And I think Trey Palmer is one of those guys that could see some starting lineup reps and kind of see a lot of volume and potentially fall in the end zone at the right place. And by week 1 or 2, it could be worth a third round pick. And right now he is, I just said third round picks are nothing, but right now he's literally nothing. He's on your waiver wire in almost every league. So it's one of those, like, if you can go out and drop Deneric Prince for a Trey Palmer or drop Tom Brady for a Trey Palmer, like that's the kind of move I would make because he's at least a starter in the NFL in terms of receiver. Now, granted, there are, 100 of those, right? And he's one of those 100, and there might still be, 30 receivers you want over him, but he could be something. And again, Evans and Godwin are getting older. Heaven forbid something happens to them or they get traded or cut or something, and this team goes into a rebuild. Trey Palmer could really rise up draft boards. So I'm kind of looking at him as a good trade candidate for post-cut down because he obviously made the team, and there's really not a lot of people behind him that I'm worried about, like Raheem Jarrett, and there's some other guy there. I can't remember his name. So it's like they're going to have 3 receivers on that field, and he's want to be one of them, so I want it.
I really like this call with Trey Palmer, especially because I'm of the belief that Mike Evans is about to have the Julio Jones fall off.
Yeah.
He's right at the same age, right at about the same production levels, except he's done it a little bit longer than Julio did it because Julio wasn't as effective his first 2 seasons in the league. Mike Evans falls off. Trey Palmer steps into that wide receiver 2 role behind Chris Godwin. What's not to like about that? And like you said, yes, this is a Baker Mayfield offense. There generally isn't a ton to be excited about from the receiving core. He's only supported 1 wide receiver 1 in his entire career. But who's to say that he couldn't do that with Chris Godwin? And then you've got Trey Palmer, who could be a high-end wide receiver 3, which, I mean, in your dynasty leagues, that's a pretty good flex play most weeks. I mean, those are the kind of guys that
Trey
you
Palmer's
want.
a 6th round pick.
And he's free. He's free, and he's a guy who can provide flex value almost every week if Evans falls off, like I believe he will.
I'm in an industry league with a bunch of sharps, and there's not a whole lot of action trade-wise because everybody's just the smartest person in the room. And I did pick him up in that league, but I overspent. I spent 20% of my fab for Trey Palmer because the waivers are barren. So it's a rough time. But I guess with if I can take it from here, there's a few guys that I like, and with all the speculation of where Jonathan Taylor was going to go, and he ended up going nowhere but to the IR for 4 weeks. Deon Jackson is a very nice pickup, and so is Evan Hull. But Evan Hull is probably he probably went in the 4th round of your rookie drafts, and Deon Jackson, there's a very good chance that he's still floating around on waivers, and that's what I would do because. Let me look him up real quick. I think that he surpassed 15 fantasy points a few times last year. He had a 17-point game. He had a 28-point game. He had a 13-point game. If they need to lean on somebody, Deon Jackson has done it before. And it's sort of that thing where with the backup running backs, you want to go with somebody who's done it before because that's kind of how NFL GMs feel it as well. And Evan Hull is very athletic, and could get it done, but Deon Jackson has gotten it done for that same team, and they might just rely on him in the meantime. So if you're in a guillotine league or something like that, you might want to pick up Deon Jackson for the first 4 weeks.
Dude, this is a really good call. This is a backfield I am intrigued by post Cutdown. And I have Evan Hull on my list. If you'd read the show sheet. Here's the thing: is I think that Hull is going to get the majority of the carries in this backfield. I guess we're transitioning to my first one because I think Hull's the guy they go with. Like, look, let's be honest. If you're Shane Steichen, you know this is a junk year. You know you're not getting Jonathan Taylor. You've got Michael Pittman. You've got Jelani Woods. You've got Alec Pierce. You've got Josh Downs. Then you've got Anthony Richardson. And then who are you going to have in the backfield? Why not see what Hull can do? Right? Like, you might as well. This is a situation where you know what Deon Jackson can do. He can produce in spurts, but he couldn't stay on the field. He was injured. You go with Hull here. And the price in Dynasty right now is almost nothing.
Right.
And the athleticism is off the charts for Evan Hull. I gotta say
that motor.
There are not many. I don't know how much. I don't know if this is kosher, but he's a white running back, and we just don't see that often. And for his athleticism to be off the charts, like, I guess he can be on the radar. You know, that's fine
for sure,
dude. Yeah, this offense is going to need to run the ball a lot.
It is.
This is going to be a heavy ground attack offense this season, and that's not going to be the case moving forward. And maybe we see a transition out of that later. But for the first 6 weeks, Evan Hull could be a guy who's like in RB1 tier territory.
There were a lot of people this year who were excited about Alec Pierce stepping up, or a lot of fantasy industry big timers who were in on Josh Downs, thinking that he graded out as a first round rookie pick in Dynasty. And Pittman is still hanging on. It's just, I don't want any part of that receiving game. But if you sell Pittman now, you can buy him back at the same place or elsewhere for probably 3/4 of the price if you just wait till the end of the season. And then he'll get a new contract somewhere else. Like, who knows what's going to happen. But I don't want any part of that receiving game.
Well, you know, if you're looking for like the occasional bomb threat, Alec Pierce probably isn't a bad guy to take a stab on, especially if he starts to develop a rapport with Anthony Richardson. And it costs now, because of that mindset, he's cheap. The thing is that Anthony Richardson does two things in the passing game well right now as a rookie. He can huck the ball downfield deep, and he's good at the short pass game. He doesn't work well in the intermediate passing game, which that kills Pittman's value for me. Because he's an intermediate pass guy. He's not a deep threat. He's not a short pass threat. He works that middle of the field. Richardson doesn't do that well. So Alec Pierce is a guy I'm fine taking a stab on. And if Evan Hull can get involved, and Jelani Woods is a guy who can get downfield too. So I think mostly what I'm saying here is I'm out on at cost Michael Pittman, but the rest of these guys at cost, they're probably worth a stab in deeper leagues if you can get them.
In best ball leagues, I love a stab on Alec Pierce at cost.
Yeah. And I'll just say this to kind of piggyback on the Colts talk. I mean, Anthony Richardson's going to be the running back one. That's pretty much what's going to happen here. So, and again, if anybody is selling Richardson low because of this, they're a terrible dynasty manager. So you definitely need to take advantage of them. But I think everybody else, you hit the nail on the head. Everybody else in that offense is going to see a little bit of a downturn. Even Pittman, I think, is kind of always been a little bit of a downturn to me. So it's kind of like if everybody on the team except for Richardson is taking a downturn, why isn't Richardson? You know what I mean? Like, it makes me feel kind of like the tide is lowering. Why isn't his boat coming down? But at the same time, anytime I think of trade targets, I think, what asset is depressed right now? Like, what assets are at their possible lowest point? And that's kind of where I was going with Trey Palmer. And again, like with these two, with Deon Jackson and with Evan Hull, their price is almost zero. And that's going to go up, obviously, as people start to realize and waivers run and things like that. You're going to start to see that happen, especially whenever we see whichever one of them takes the ball and gets more carries in week one. I can guarantee you can flip whoever that is, whichever one it is, if you have them, for more than what you paid for after week one. So it's worth it.
You know who's going to get an uptick in carries? Anthony Richardson.
Exactly. Yeah. He's going to be the RB1. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think anybody's disputing that, but there is value to be had in Deon Jackson and Evan Hull. So, all right. Now, Andrew, I want to get to your next guy. This is one I almost put on the sheet, and I ended up going elsewhere. But let's talk about your second guy here.
Yeah, for me, it's Pierre Strong. I just think that trade speaks volumes to me. Jerome Ford is not bad. I'm not saying anything bad about Jerome Ford, but the fact that the team went out and acquired Pierre Strong from the Patriots made me think that the team thinks that they need more depth. And it's kind of like, 3D chess in a way. I want to make sure I get those guys. And we can talk about coach speak all the time. We can talk about guys that are doing well in practice and, oh, he got so many yards in the preseason game, like Myles Gaskin and Kenyon Drake. Obviously, we were just talking about the Colts. Had a great preseason game and then just gets cut. Like, it doesn't matter. None of that matters. What matters is actions and spending assets, sending a trade for Pierre Strong to me speaks volumes about what this team thinks of Jerome Ford and, if nothing else, their depth. And I think Pierre Strong is still a pretty good running back. I think he actually had some flashes a little bit last year here and there. I think he's a guy that you're going to see and can actually put into your lineup, barring anything crazy. But again, he could be the Kareem Hunt of this offense. We don't know. I mean, I don't think he's quite that archetype, but he could get some volume. He could get some carries, and they traded for him. So that to me speaks more than any sort of stats in the preseason or practice catches or other blurbs that you're going to see all the places. Like, they actually did something to go get this guy. That means I want him on my team too. So yeah, Pierre Strong is the guy that I'm trying to get. And I have him in a bunch of leagues and I have held on to him. I know when they signed Zeke, I was like, nah, I'm going to hold on. I think Pierre Strong's still going to be there, and he's not, but he's somewhere better in my mind. So, I'm all in on Pierre Strong, and depending on the cost, I may be trading more for him in the next couple of weeks here.
Well, I'm with you because Jerome Ford was a very nice situational player, but Pierre Strong runs a sub 4.4.
Yeah,
that's a little bit different, and they've got a phenomenal blocking run game. So, just getting a piece of that backfield. Now, Andrew, you're from Cincinnati. Is there anybody behind Mixon besides Chase Brown yet?
Well, so Trevion Williams has always been kind of there. Chris Evans is more of a punt returner. I don't know. I think they cut Chris Evans actually finally, but I know Trevion Williams is kind of the other back. So, yeah, there's some question marks there, but it does seem like they're trying to lean into Chase Brown. But I'm pretty sure I saw Chris Evans did not make the final 53, which is a bummer, but at the same time, he might be signed to the practice squad and get called back up at some point anyway. But yeah, I think it's Trevion Williams is the guy that you want there now, other than Chase Brown.
All right, so Andrew, I want to go back to Pierre Strong real quick, Matt. God. So I really like Pierre Strong. 10 targets last season, 7 targets, 7 catches, 42 yards, average 6 yards per target, 6 yards per catch. Then he had 10 carries for 100 yards. How efficient is that? He only played in 3 games. Okay. But his best game was against Arizona. 32% snap share, his highest of the season last season. One of 3 games he played in. 5 carries, 70 yards, and a touchdown. Plus he got 2 passes for 20 yards. Now,
who's this?
Vermont. This is Pierre Strong.
Wow.
So he very limited action, but we saw it last season. The dude's talented. If they can get him, if he can fill that Kareem Hunt role, which I'm assuming that's what Stefanski is looking at here. He's looking at that Kamara prototype, can catch the ball out of the backfield, but can also run. He's 5'11", 215. He's only 24 years old, right? This is going to be his second year in the league. This is a guy that it costs. I want to acquire him. I want him on my bench. And if he goes off, because if he goes off, he's going to go off. It's going to be like Kareem Hunt's freshman rookie season in Kansas City, where he just comes out of nowhere and it's like, what in the living hell am I watching? I feel like Pierre Strong I'm not saying that I think it's necessarily likely, but I want a piece of that on my rosters, on my deeper benches.
I'm right there with you. Yeah, I think you also might be able to catch some dynasty managers sleeping where they see the Ezekiel Elliott signing, he's on New England, and then they didn't really pay attention to the trade, and they just think he got cut or he's in a busy backfield. Like, it's been a busy week. We were talking about this before. And speaking on that, actually, Chris Evans did make the roster. I remember seeing a report he was on the bubble, but he did make the roster. So just to clarify, catch that up for people listening. But so Chris Evans is still with the Bengals. But Pierre Strong obviously is again, a pure talent. And I think, again, Chubb is going to get the majority of carries. He's not going to eat into Chubb's volume, but at the same time, Pierre Strong is a guy that can go in on third down and make something happen. Again, if something were to happen to Chubb, even like has to miss a series or two, I think Pierre Strong is going to get the ball more than Ford. And again, he's going to need some time to catch up to that offense and kind of get down with things. We could see another crazy thing happen in the next week or two where he does get cut or traded or practice squatted or something. So we're a little ahead of ourselves, but just optimistically thinking, I'm kind of with you, Nate. Like, I just want every piece of him I can get.
Yep. The situation just seems to line up perfectly for me. Yeah. And all of the reports we've been hearing out of camp in Cleveland is that Deshaun Watson's just been nothing less than disappointing.
Yeah.
So, and if that's the case, they're going to have to shy away from the passing game. And then you're going to see a lot of Chubb and Strong, probably two-back sets where you've got Pierre Strong lining up in the slot, or just those two-back sets where all of a sudden we're seeing Pierre Strong getting like a 60% snap share, along with Chubb getting 60 to 70 to 80% snap share, where they're both on the field a lot because that's the only thing this team can do. And I really hope that's the case for so many reasons. I just, Deshaun Watson fail, all that stuff. Yeah. But we're not going to get into the politics side of football here. We could be here for days and days and days on that.
Especially with the three of us, my goodness.
Right. But let's get into our next segment here. Now we're going to go post-cutdown day drop candidates. Guys who were either dropped or we're just looking at it after the cutdown day. Maybe their team signed someone and it's like, I don't think I want anything to do with this guy anymore. And Andrew, your two hurt my heart.
Mine too. And
one of them I actually disagree with you.
Well, and that's fair. And
you throw out first.
I want to put these out. They're kind of for similar reasons. And Bailey Zappi was my first one. And we kind of talked about him at the beginning of this. Even if they bring him back, this does not bode well, in my opinion, of their trust of him. And the fact that he went through and cleared waivers means no one else wanted him. Like, it just, I don't know, it throws up all sorts of red flags to me. Like, they obviously know more than I do when it comes to drafting and talent scouting and all this. And they must have seen something they didn't necessarily enjoy, or, no one else really enjoyed it. Or even if he's on the bubble, that does not bode well. Why are you keeping only one quarterback? That's how bad Bailey Zappi is. There's so many of these that are like red flags. So I'm not necessarily saying drop. I mean, obviously there are a lot of roster cutdowns that I'm dealing with in dynasty leagues too, where it's like, we're at 34 roster spots, need to go to 30 by the beginning of the season. In that case, if I'm trying to cut 4 players from my roster, people that aren't on active rosters are the first people I'm looking at, right? Where it's like, I just can't hold this person anymore. I've got to move on to something else, So again, I like Zappi, the player, but I just don't like the vibes right now. I'm just not getting it. And again, if Bill Belichick is done and that whole offense is just keeping one quarterback, like that feels like a really odd kind of tank. And again, as much as I like him, I'm okay to drop him if I got somebody better.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, because it is such a curious situation that they would be so disgusted by both Malik Cunningham and Bailey Zappi.
Cunningham looked good. That's what throws me off. Like Zappi was kind of but Cunningham was good.
When I heard they were releasing Zappi, I thought, okay, that makes sense. Malik Cunningham made the team, and he's the backup, and we might be in Malik Cunningham season by like week 10 this year if Mac Jones is bad enough. And then hearing that Malik, that was just a very confusing situation. Yeah. All right, Mr. Unprepared Matthew, who do you got for us, buddy?
I can't imagine dropping anybody that's still on a team right now, just because of the situation, the whole NFL, and there was something like 1,000 drops, 1,000 cutdowns. So if you are dropping somebody that's still on a team, I can't imagine why you'd be doing that. If the people on your rosters made an NFL roster, they're withholding because other teams in your league will be dropping all of the Lou Nichols and all of the Deneric Princes and all of the Bailey Zappis, and let them drop everybody. Keep everybody, even if it's Kendrick Bourne or whoever else Mac Jones is throwing to back there. Just keep anybody that has a roster spot, and let the rest of your league mates trim down. And when they figure out that they have a little bit more roster room to deal with, then you can get rid of whoever you want to cut right now.
I mean, that everybody does it differently. But yeah, I agree with you. Like, if you have the roster room, don't let go of some of these guys yet. We're talking about a situation where it's like, you guys, there are better players to put in that roster spot. But some of these guys, like Deneric Prince, we don't know what if he lands somewhere and he's like James Robinson, an injury plows it, puts him into a position to start, and all of a sudden, dude has 1,000-yard season.
Well, James Robinson is an interesting drop candidate too, right? Like, he was on the Giants for a hot minute and then got cut. And I could see the logic in dropping him. I think I dropped him in one league yesterday, but he could still find a home. Like, he's like you could put him in the same kind of mindset as Kareem Hunt and Leonard Fournette, really. He's got a cachet. Like, so you could still hold on to someone like that if you've got the depth. And I always prefer holding on to running backs over anything else, just because all it takes is one injury for them to see volume. So I almost never cut running backs.
Especially if they've shown something in the NFL that NFL GMs can rely on. I didn't drop any of my J-Robs.
Yeah, and I'm probably going to hold on to James Robinson. I think he finds somewhere to play. However, so this is a great transition to a guy that I'm dropping because I don't think he finds a meaningful spot on an NFL team. It's Trey Sermon.
Finally.
Oh.
Like there was hope when he signed with Philly. Then we heard some decent reports early in camp, and then it just kind of fizzled, right? So Trey Sermon, guys, he's done. We can be done with
the dream is over. Yeah.
The dream is over, dude. Trey Sermon, it was a mistake. Kyle Shanahan made a mistake. The dude doesn't have NFL pedigree. I'm sure he's a nice guy, and I feel bad that his dream's over, as I do for all of these guys who got released.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, you have to look at a player in Dynasty and say, he's not even worth a roster spot. Even in my deep leagues, I'm letting go because there's nothing there.
Trey Sermon is he's tall Jarrett Patterson, and nobody's going to break out on their fourth team in their third year. It's not happening.
No, I'm with you. And Trey Sermon was someone I was actually picking up in the last couple of weeks because of those reports, just to like throw him on my bench with these expanded rosters in some leagues, right? Just to be like, hey, I'll take him over, Lou Nichols, like you were mentioning, and some of these other guys that are just like Kenny McIntosh. It was like, maybe a something, but not really a something anymore. And so I was kind of stashing him just in case Penny got hurt, right? Which we've seen, or just in case Swift got traded again, which we've seen, there's been all these kind of talks about Taylor and Swift and Taylor Swift. So it's like, you never know who's going to happen and do what. So I was like, oh, let me stash Sermon. And then he got cut, and I was like, oh, thank God. Okay, because there's no way I wanted to start Sermon. So I was like, that kind of ends that dream for me too, which I'm perfectly fine with. So yeah, Sermon's been one of mine, I would even say for the past 2 years. I feel like he's been a drop candidate for me. But yeah, I don't blame you for trying. It's worth it.
Yep. All right, so Andrew, for your next guy, we're going to go back to the Eagles here. This is the one that hurts. It hurts my heart.
This one kind of hurts me too, and I feel like it's worth a discussion because it's Albert Okawigboam. Albert O is a guy that I've always kind of had a feeling would do something and kind of be a guy in the NFL and like be somebody for fantasy. And then it just never really panned out. Obviously in Denver, the receiving group was kind of crowded and the tight end room got a little crowded with Dulcich and Troutman now going there. And obviously he's a Saints guy with Peyton. And it's like, I just don't know if there's room for Albert O. And sure enough, they cut him. Oh, wait, no, they traded him. Like there was that whole like reverse course kind of thing. Yep. And then they traded him to the Eagles. And I'm like, man, I like Goddard, which we've talked about Goddard in other places. Like I like Goddard a lot this year. I think he's a fine asset, but I just don't see the path to touches for Albert O, even on that offense. It's a great offense, but also trading him at this hour, at this like late stage after kind of announcing he was cut. And then the Eagles are like, wait, before you cut him, what if we give you a seventh or whatever? What if we give you something so that it doesn't go to waivers and we guarantee to get him? And of course, then Denver's like, stop that fax machine. So they're like, wait, hang on. So I think that it just doesn't say much that like the Eagles, that they couldn't find a buyer before cutting him. And then the Eagles kind of came in at the last hour, swooped in like the Eagle they are. And we're like, we'll take him. And it's just, I just don't know. So I'm like, I'm willing to drop if I have to. I don't want to. But again, depending on roster size and what else is out there, and kind of like what you said too, man, like if a lot of other teams are dropping players, you might find somebody on waivers that you did not expect. So, I mean, you might be able to drop him for somebody like that. I'm not saying drop him for nothing, but he's one of those guys that has been on my bubble. And with this trade, I'm not more in. Let's just put it that way. I'm kind of the same or less in, more out than I was before.
Because of my Goddard exposure, I am definitely picking him up right now. Because who's the fourth pass catcher on that team?
I can't think of it off the top of my head, but I bet I can find it.
We can all find it.
It might be Quez Watkins. Like, we don't
Miles
know.
Sanders?
But Albert O he's gone.
Isn't Zacchaeus is there?
Zacchaeus. Okay, great. Yeah, I'll take Albert O over Zacchaeus for sure. But Alberto's hyper talented. The last preseason game, he had over 100 yards and a touchdown. He's still good. He's as good as he always was. He just never got that shot for whatever reason on Nathaniel Hackett. And the Eagles have been known to, under different coaching staff, of course, they've been known to run two tight end sets. Ertz and Goddard both were tight end ones at one time. Albert O shouldn't be on waivers. He shouldn't.
Nope.
He should be on a team in your league.
I'm not necessarily arguing with you. I just know that I do have a lot of Grant Calcaterra too, still rostering or wasting away on my rosters because I still always thought he's going to be the guy. Because again, at least looking at our lads right now, it's AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, Olamide Zacchaeus, and Quez Watkins are literally it for their receiving group. And then they've got four running backs, which again, Gainwell and Boston Scott are both still there too. So like they've gotten a lot of pass catching options in the backfield. I just don't know if I see volume for Albert O on some of these like 25 to 30 man rosters. That's going to be tough. If you can stash him, go for it. But I think I'm fine dropping him because this change of teams isn't always a good thing either. I mean, obviously it gives us optimism that there's going to be some upside, but changing teams, especially right before the season, there's a very high likelihood that he just doesn't really catch on. There's too much stress. It doesn't really work. Like I don't know. I'm just not holding out hope anymore just because if he was still in Denver, maybe, but I don't know.
That's fair.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I want to do my last one real quick because I love taking an opportunity because Kenyon Drake has burned me so many freaking times in fantasy. And I know I'm not alone.
Yeah.
Here.
Well, Kenyon Drake has burned me in a sense where I played against him 1 week and that 1 week he blew up. That's the only time I've ever really remembered Kenyon Drake. I never played him when he had a good week.
Oh, no, I didn't either. But I was had him on my bench when he had a good week. So
same.
He couldn't beat out Evan Hull, Zach Moss with the broken arm, Deon Jackson. Kenyon Drake's done, right? This is like a Trey Sermon situation where it's like, he'll land somewhere. He'll get a contract. I believe that. It might not be week 1, but there'll be a point in this season where somebody gets hurt, like what we saw happen in Denver last season, where they brought in freaking everybody, Latavius Murray and Chase Edmonds, and they had Mike Boone, and I'm surprised they didn't bring Philip Lindsay back.
Royce Freeman, I think, too, right?
Royce Freeman. See if Frank Gore would come out of retirement just to help out a little bit, Kenyon Drake's toast.
I tried selling him for literally a toasted sandwich last year and couldn't get it done. And I got to ask you, if nobody's buying him for even a sandwich, how hardcore zero RB do you have to be to want to take him on at any point before any game, period? I just can't imagine the situation.
You have to be real sick.
Well, again, my thesis in running backs comes from Scott Connor. Any RB on a 53 is not on a 53. I don't want him. Like, it's not worth the risk. Yes, he could get added. Yes, somebody could get hurt. At that point, I'll worry about it. But I'm fine cutting that. There's other. I mean, even Deon Jackson, Evan Hall. I'd rather have either of them over Kenyon Drake because they're on a roster. And again, Drake did look pretty good in the last preseason game for the Colts. I remember seeing some of that, and I was kind of impressed. I'm like, hey, all right, this guy's. Nope, they cut him like it was nothing. Like it didn't even matter. So again, honestly, too, though, he was probably playing against future popcorn poppers at the movie theater kind of players. You know what I'm saying? Like he wasn't playing against the top tier talent, making all those good plays. But it still shows he's got the heart. It still shows he's got the drive. So you're right. Probably somebody will take him, but I'm out until that happens.
Well, and even if somebody does take him, like I was alluding to with the whole Broncos situation, there's no way he gets enough volume to be even remotely fantasy relevant. This is like what we were saying with whoever it was we were talking about earlier. This is 5 carries a game.
Yeah,
that's the max you're ever going to see out of him.
I'm fine leaving that on waivers, honestly. Like there's a lot of other players I'd rather take risks on, or even like deeper tight ends, even Albert O. I'd rather have Albert O in a heartbeat, of course, over at Kenyon Drake or Trey Sermon, to be honest. Even Bailey Zappi. Like mine are more on the shallower league side. Yours are very deep. But I think at the same time, the logic for all of this is kind of the true thing is that these are all players with very fluid situations, whether they're on teams or not, or changing or whatever. And it's still like, those are the kind of players that I'm looking at cutting because I have a hard time predicting the future. Otherwise I wouldn't be doing this. But I mean, if I could predict the future, I would know exactly what to do. My logic is I'm just going on the data I have now. I'm not going to try to put too much optimism and upside. That's burned me so many times in the past. And like you keep saying, Matt, if somebody's done it before, I'd rather have that. I mean, yeah, Drake's done it before, but not on his couch. You know what I mean? Like he's not going to get my fantasy points on couch. So I'm off. Right. So yeah, I'm kind of with you on all this.
The thing is that I would rather roll the dice on a roster spot, putting Andrew Luck there, hoping maybe he comes out of retirement. That's better use of a roster spot, in my opinion, than rostering Kenyon Drake or Trey Sermon, for that matter.
Not gonna lie, that's pretty brutal, but I don't disagree with you.
I mean, man. Because at least if Andrew Luck comes out of retirement, like you've got a QB2, at least out of the gate.
Yeah.
Neither one of these guys are a QB2. They're not even an RB30.
Yeah.
These are guys who were there in the 200s, 300. Yeah, no. All right, enough about these gross running backs.
I was going to say, if I had read the show sheet, I would segue right into it because I'm done talking about Kenyon Drake and Andrew Luck. What year is this?
2016.
Great. We're set.
All right, guys, so to round out the show, we're going to do a fun game of Keep, Trade, Cut. If you're not familiar, Keep, Trade, Cut is a Dynasty Rankings website that uses the Keep, Trade, Cut game that is taken from a far more profanely named game that you have most definitely heard of and used for fantasy football purposes. So because this is a family show, we're going to keep it clean here. We've got some examples from the actual website that I threw in here. And we're just going to go very quickly through this here, guys. This is a very short, fun segment. I just want to know your order, and I want you to make me laugh. That's all we're looking for.
Can do.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So here's our first one. We're going to start with Andrew for this first one. Devin Duvernay, Kyle Phillips, or Jordan Mason?
All right. Well, I don't want to say this is easy. This is not easy, but I'm definitely cutting Jordan Mason. I'm just not sold on that. I just don't think there's any value in that. The one that I think has the most value is probably Kyle Phillips, to be honest with you. I think he's the one that I want the most. So he's the one I'm going to try to trade because I think I might actually be able to get something for him, whether it's a third or fourth. And receivers are so tricky this year and any year, really, and honestly, in Dynasty. So I'm probably holding Devin Duvernay just because, too, I think that offense might take a step up. Kyle Phillips, I think there could be somebody out there that likes Kyle Phillips, but I'm pretty sure most people are out on Duvernay. So I'm going to keep Duvernay, trade Phillips, and cut Mason right in order. I like it.
No, that's perfect. Matt, do you have any disagreement here?
A little bit. I do like Kyle Phillips. I do like the name recognition. I did get to pick him up off waivers a few times, and I think that you could probably get a 3-4 swap for Kyle Phillips if you wanted to send him to like the Treylon Burks or the DeAndre Hopkins manager. Devin Duvernay, I've been waiting for Devin Duvernay for 4 years and I'm tired of it. So I'm definitely cutting him. And Jordan Mason, he's definitely going to be my keep because if you have a Shanahan running back in a very likely to get hurt running back room, just get somebody there and stick him in the back of your roster.
Sure. Fair enough. All right. So let's go to our next one here. We've got Jerry Jeudy, Dameon Pierce in a 2025 mid-first. Matthew Chester, give it to us, man.
Damn, that is tough.
You're a piece of crap, man. This is really hard, man.
Okay,
it's not hard. Go ahead, Matt. It's not hard for me.
Okay, good, because you're going to go second. Because I'm curious if you're confident on this in any way. I'm going to cut Dameon Pierce because long term is how we play Dynasty, and we just never know what's going to happen. And you can always replace production at the running back position. Jerry Jeudy, I'm going to trade away because he's got name recognition, but he's also entering the final year of his contract, I believe, and he's injured, and that's just a bad situation for keeping Dynasty value. Things could go the other way, and he could just explode down the stretch, and then he would also need to get another contract next year. So you need a few things to happen with Jerry Jeudy, and he's already behind the 8 ball. So if I can recoup value, I think that he's worth. I think that you could get possibly get more back than a 2025 mid-first for Jerry Jeudy. And in that case, give me the most stable asset to hang on to, and that's going to be the future first.
So I'm oddly with you on this.
Damn, I screwed up, didn't I?
No, 3 weeks ago, I would have been keep Jeudy, cut Pierce, trade the pick. But with the injury, it becomes concerning because you keep talking about these soft tissue injuries. And when these soft tissue injuries pile up on these players, you start to see the re-injuries. And then at that point, they're not necessarily injury prone. They're just beat up, right? Which has been the concern with Christian McCaffrey and his soft tissue injuries. We're all waiting for it to all come toppling down. And it will one of these seasons. It might not be this year. It might not even be next year. But with Jeudy, we keep seeing that occurring. Sucks.
He has to have something behind his name. He has to have something else on his resume besides.
I mean, instead of an S or an IR or
yes.
Exactly right.
Q,
right. So and I don't believe in Dameon Pierce, and probably honestly, I keep that 2025 mid-first to move it later for something I need during the season.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll piggyback and just say I'm agreeing, but my logic was slightly different. My logic was, well, which one of these is going to ascend in value the most? It's the pick by far.
Guaranteed.
Right? Like Jerry Jeudy is probably declining or staying about the same, and Dameon Pierce is about to fall off a cliff after the season, I think. So that's why I'm keeping the first, because I want to keep the one that is ascending the fastest, and I'm trading or cutting the other two. Well, then I'm like, well, which one is going to be out of here faster and which one has less value? It's Dameon Pierce. I think in a startup, Judy's going to be going way ahead of Pierce. So in my mind, Jeudy has the most, perceived value. That's the one I'm trading every time. So yeah, I'm the same as you guys. Yeah.
He's got the most perceived value, but he needs the most to happen to keep it.
Well, I think you guys are saying the same thing too, though. I think you would probably get more for the first, but I'm holding that one. I don't need to trade a first right now. Like Nate said, I'd rather wait and trade it for something I need down the road. I would not be sending a 25 first for Jerry Jeudy or Dameon Pierce right now. I'm definitely willing to hold that pick for a better player. Like you might even be able to get like a Keenan Allen for that or something, right? Like somebody, I think Keenan Allen's going to blow up this year. Dameion Pierce might have a good year, but I still would rather have Keenan Allen than either of those two. So again, depending on scoring, but yeah, that's
I take a trash can for Dameion Pierce at this point. That's kind of how
toasted
I feel
sandwich.
about it. A toasted sandwich. Only if it comes from Mike Fiala,
nice
Daddy.
panini.
So it's got a panini. I could go for that. All right, guys, we're gonna do one more here, and then we're gonna get everyone out of here. This is one that I love. I love this one. This one's tricky. We've got Daniel Jones, DJ Moore, and George Pickens.
Man, well, obviously we're assuming Superflex because otherwise this isn't fair.
Yes.
In Superflex, I tend to value QB a lot. I think that there are just not that many of them that start, and the scarcity makes me scared. So I'm probably going to keep Daniel Jones just because the QB position is chaotic as hell. I think Pickens has probably got a higher ability to raise in value, like I just said before. So I'm probably trying to trade Pickens, and then I guess I'm cutting Moore, but I don't like that. I don't like this at all. And again, I'm probably backwards on that logic where it's like Moore is probably better than Pickens, but I just think Pickens is more of a name value in future world and things like this. But tell me I'm wrong. I'd love it.
I love it. Go ahead, Nate.
I don't think you're necessarily wrong here. I mean, assuming Superflex, you keep Daniel Jones, especially with that rushing upside.
Yep.
And so what kind of solidifies it for me is that this is going to sound ridiculous, but Kenny Pickett is more of a reliable asset at quarterback to me than Justin Fields. Justin Fields has the far higher ceiling, right? Kenny Pickett has the higher floor. And I want the wide receiver with the quarterback who has the higher floor. I think Pickett's going to make less mistakes than Justin Fields. And I think ultimately he's probably a slightly more accurate passer than Justin Fields. And we've seen DJ Moore with mid quarterbacks. If Justin Fields ends up just being a mid quarterback this season, DJ Moore's not even a wide receiver too.
Yeah.
Like there's too much risk involved in DJ Moore. And don't get me wrong, I love DJ Moore and I have been going after DJ Moore. I have plenty of DJ Moore, a lot of DJ Moore in best ball at his current value because people are sleeping on what I think could be a huge season. But in this situation, I'm risk averse. I'm staying away. I'm cutting DJ Moore. Pickens just has the higher upside with a more reliable offense.
I think so too. Unfortunately, what do you think, Matt? Are you on the same page as us?
I am not.
Good.
I think that we've probably seen Daniel Jones's ceiling. I don't see him creeping into the top 6. Do you guys?
It's fair. I don't think top 6. No, that's a fair point. It's a fair point.
Okay. But I also know that we haven't seen anything close to DJ Moore's ceiling because he's never really breached top 18, has he?
No.
But I'll tell you this. They have 32 starting quarterbacks in the NFL. They probably have about 90 starting wide receivers. DJ Moore is going to keep his job for another 4 years. Really? You can't say the same for Daniel Jones. We can't even say the same for George Pickens because the Pittsburgh wide receivers, they just come and go, and Pittsburgh stays the same. And Pittsburgh stays awesome with their wide receivers, but I don't know that George Pickens is necessarily a long-term asset, and I definitely don't know if Daniel Jones is a long-term asset. We have seen Daniel Jones' ceiling. I'm afraid we've also seen George Pickens' ceiling. We haven't seen DJ Moore's ceiling, and we also have not seen the beginning of the end of his career. So I'm going to hang on to DJ Moore, especially at the price that y'all are giving, which is cut.
Yeah, well, that's fair. No, and I want to add this too. I think that this is one of the reasons I don't like keep trade cut because there's no way in hell I'm cutting any of these guys. Like this bothers me that I have to cut someone. Like that's not appropriate. It's more like how do you rank them? And I wish it was like rank them 1, 2, 3, which makes more sense. That being said, my style is different than value too, right? If we're talking about most value and kind of in Dynasty, I think Daniel Jones has the most value, which is why I'm going with my answer. But if it's like in my gut, I'm kind of with you. I feel like Daniel Jones is probably the one I trade because I think a lot of people can get a lot of value for him in a quarterback. Obviously is worth a lot in Superflex. And then obviously I'm deciding between holding and cutting DJ Moore and Pickens. Again, it just doesn't sound right. So like no matter what, I'm not cutting. I can't see cutting any of these guys or trading them low. It doesn't make any sense. So yeah, it's just, I don't know. I feel like we're all in the same basic arena, even though we have slightly different answers in a sense. The logic is all pretty sound. And that's really what we're going for, right?
And I'm with you because I think I have one DJ Moore across 20 Dynasty leagues, and I don't have either of the other players across 20 Dynasty leagues because they're not keep, trade, cut. They're trade.
Yes, actually, good point. Yeah, they're all trade because they're all names that can get more value than what you think they are in certain leagues and certain markets and all that. But I think you're on the nail on the head there with Daniel Jones. Obviously, he's not. I don't think he's going to be a top 6 quarterback. There is a chance that he's a top 10 quarterback because there's so much chaos at the position. But I mean, again, if I'm getting a top 10 quarterback straight up for DJ Moore, I'm taking that in a heartbeat. So it's like, I don't understand entirely that logic of trading either. It's like, am I trading one of these for the other? Is that the value should all be the same, right? Because then it's like, maybe that's what they're trying to get at, but I would clearly rather have Daniel Jones and the other two as straight value. So I always get kind of confused with those questions. I just kind of click and move on. And I'm probably the one skewing a lot of their data, but anyway, that's fine. That's
damn it, Andrew.
Everybody is. Everybody's doing the same
thing. I know
thing.
It seems very skewed entirely to me. I don't know. I've never really trusted it. It's too crazy, but whatever.
You guys, we're just a little more than a week away from the first NFL game of the 2023 season. Andrew, thank you so much for coming on with Matt and I today. We really do appreciate it. And guys, we're going to be back next week, the day before kickoff, to celebrate. We are so incredibly excited. Now, Andrew, I want to make sure that all of our listeners and our viewers here are following you on Twitter at Andrew Hall FF. You can find his work as a featured writer on Fantasy Pros. I know I promote it via Twitter at least 3 to 4 times a week. I see it come across all the time anyway. And you can also find him every Thursday night at 9:30 p.m. Eastern on the Dynasty Junkies at Dynasty Junkies on Twitter. Andrew, I don't think I missed anything. I think I nailed it all. Oh, you do something with NFL All Day with the NFTs as well. You've got a show that talks about the NFTs.
I do. I'm wearing the NFL All Day hat.
Yes.
Yeah, All Day Both Ways
awesome.
is a podcast we started this year to kind of talk about the content on NFL All Day. It's really just about football fandom, and I just am a big fan of football. So, again, it's like NBA Top Shot, but for football, and it's players you know and love. There's tons of utility to these moments. You can get in there and do playbooks and generate new moments and kind of tear up and all this. They're adding a ton of new stuff this year. So definitely hit me up if you have any interest in NFL All Day. But yeah, at Dynasty Junkies, we're doing that every Thursday. I know we're taking a couple of weeks off here at the start of the season just because of regular life and things that are kind of happening. But I always tell people too, this is, in my mind, this is the slowest time for Dynasties, the first couple of weeks, because all the redraft people come out of the woodwork. Everybody's talking redraft content. There really isn't a lot of actionable advice, in my opinion. Now there's some, but not a lot for Dynasty because it's only one data point. But after a few weeks, you start to see people deciding, all right, am I going in? Am I going to make a run for the title? Am I going to be rebuilding? Like, you kind of have to start making those decisions. And that's really where we're going to pick back up with Junkies. This is our only real quote unquote window of break because there is no off season, right? So this is like the slowest time of the year, ironically, as football is actually starting. But also Rocky and I are both in 40 leagues and have tons of lineups and waivers and everything else, like our regular Dynasty players. And like you said, Matt, with 20 leagues, like, we were busy enough as it is. So we're going to take a little bit of time and reset and come back probably beginning of October after the first week show goes off. But yeah, it's a pleasure being here. Thank you so much for having me. And I'll see you out on those mean X streets, not Twitter, X.
Yeah, well, because officially it's X. I just did an overlay for another show and I had to do the Twitter handles and I had to use a little X logo now. Like that's officially what you have to use. So I guess it's real. Yeah, I guess it's real. Well, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Thank you for making us a part of your week before the NFL season starts. Make sure that you like and subscribe on YouTube and make sure you're following our channel on your favorite podcast service. Thank you so much. We will see you next Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern. Adios.